Why is everyone talking about eating local? On today's menu. Around the world, chefs and farmers are shortening the distance between the farm and the dinner table. Born out of a desire to eat fresher produce, sourcing locally also happens to be sustainable and better for the planet. Farm-raised venison roam free on New Zealand's fertile pastures.
What we want to do is live off our own land.
Going back to basics in the heart of Provence.
We pick up what we need for the day. That's why we have no waste.
Beautiful.
A baker embraces old world values in upstate New York.
It's very close to the way bread was baked 100 years ago.
The semi-wild Maramani of Tuscany.
To literally transform the products of the farm into food.
The Maori name for New Zealand is the land of the long white cloud, meaning there's a reason why it is green and it rains. And it rains quite a bit up here, which means that you can grow anything. And if you look out here, this is the fruit and vegetable bowl, not just for New Zealand, but for Southeast Asia.
On the North Island of New Zealand, in rural Gisborne, Case and Kay Whiteman pride themselves on a farm-to-table lifestyle, running a sustainable ranch that has been in the family for nearly a century. They eat almost exclusively from meat and produce raised right on their own backyard.
The farm's called Knapdale. It was my granddad called it Knapdale from the area that he came from in Scotland.
So what you're seeing here is a permaculture garden, and this here is called Jerusalem artichokes. We are growing a lot of our food, and from that point of view, we're not original. We're just doing like the older folk have done for many generations. That is one of the reasons why we like living in New Zealand. Just the abundance of fruit is just incredible.
The farm hasn't seen any fertilizer for 26 years. We use the bees to fertilize the clover, and the clover fixes then the nitrogen, and the nitrogen makes the grass grow, and that makes our animals happy. This is Hagrid. We had a calf born, and that calf got adopted by the goose as its new husband, so to say. And now it is 6 years later, and there is this big Highland steer, and the goose is still with him. They've been together now for 6 years.
New calves are not allowed to get close to Hamish. The goose is very protective about her new husband.
Grazing in open pastures and free from steroids that can toughen muscle, Knapdale Farm produces some of the region's best game, surprisingly both lean and tender.
That's my girl. That's my girl.
We put a lot of thought into what food the deer are getting and when. As Case said, there are certain times of the year that they need more food.
So they were born in December last year, and by October, November, they would have reached weight that we send them off to the works, and then they come back vacuum packed, and that's when they get consumed. Or we take them to the farmers market as well. Every Saturday I go to the farmers market, and then we sell salami and our surplus product.
You know, I really like to know where my food comes from, and I think, you know, there are more farmers markets now just because of that, because people are questioning where their food comes from. I prefer to cook venison in big pieces rather than cutting it into steaks, because venison's got no fat in it at all and it dries out really, really easily. So you have to make sure that you're cooking it medium rare, otherwise it's just dry and unpalatable. I serve it on an apple and kuma rosti. Kuma is the Māori name for a sweet potato. I'm just going to have a little look at it, because I say I don't really want to overdo it. Don't think I want to be cooking that too much more actually. Looks about right.
Going to the very basic, what we want to do is live off our own land. In a nutshell, that's what we want to do. And anything that the land provides, we will see as an opportunity to sustain us.
Near the town of Arles, there is a restaurant called Le Chassaignette,
Françoise, on a un peu des tomates par là ou pas?
where the chef, Armand Arnault, is at the forefront of France's new organic movement.
You have the blue basil here.
Gorgeous.
The star of the place is the garden, and we just have to wait until he gives to us the best produce to prepare in the kitchen.
Armand Arnault just finished his first season here at La Chassaignette, and it's already garnering worldwide attention from gourmets, including those from Paris, who travel down just for a single lunch.
At La Chassaignette, Chef Armand Arnault embraces the simplicity of farm-to-table dining. Located in Arles, about 450 miles south of Paris, the restaurant's menu draws largely from produce pulled straight from its adjacent garden. A protege of legendary chef Alain Ducasse, Arnault now allows seasonal produce to drive his menu. Inspired by what's fresh versus what's traditional, his menu is garnering international attention.
So you know what? We're gonna pick up some few things to prepare for the kitchen, okay? Like we do every morning. We have 4 gardeners here who do amazing jobs. We pick up what we need for the day.
Wow,
That's why we have no waste.
beautiful. So they know exactly which ones are going
Yes.
to be ripe,
Exactly.
like this morning.
Some beautiful eggplants, green zebra tomato.
For him to be able to work with something that's, you know, just an eggplant or just a tomato when it's at its absolute peak, that's what he feels is really a luxury ingredient.
It doesn't matter if it's a foie gras or a tomato. When you have what the nature gives to you at this moment, and you have the time and the place to pick it up and work with it right away. For a chef, you know, I mean, it's just like a dream. Okay, so we have melons, we have the tomatoes, the mix of the tomatoes, and then we're gonna start a small recipe.
Okay, great.
Okay, so we're gonna do a beautiful gazpacho of melon, and then after we're gonna do a baby tuna called bonite.
Despite the fact that most of Armand's ingredients come from within 70 kilometers or so of La Chassaignette, he's not content with just serving up typically Provençal dishes.
This is a lemon cucumber.
Lemon cucumber.
Yes, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna put this cucumber in the soup to have a balance, to add some mineral taste. Olive oil, like 2-3 tablespoons. In a simple dish, the important thing is to balance the flavors. I like feeling the big piece of a vegetable.
Basil blossoms here, just not even the leaves themselves. Beautiful. Classic French cuisine, you like never ate the skin, you never ate the seeds, and here you're eating.
You never eat the best.
So you garnish this with a sunflower petal?
Yeah. And you see all the things happen.
The sweetness of the melon comes through so subtly.
The tomatoes,
The acidity.
the freshness of the cucumber. So now we're gonna do a dish that's gonna be like half Spain, half Italian, okay? We're gonna sear it very quickly with garlic and sweet pepper. I was in north of Spain, and it was this woman who always prepare this mix to do all the calamaris and all the things coming out from the sea. So I just steal the recipe from her.
This is going on to a super hot flat top grill right now. Whoa, the smoke off of that is just so powerful.
And then I'm going to show you the eggplants. I cook on the oven, very low, balsamic vinegar, then olive oil. Same-o, same-o. Here we make a caviar, eggplant caviar.
Eggplant caviar. This is like a very classic Mediterranean staple.
Exactly. And we had some basil, red onions,
Parsley.
a little bit of garlic. So that is two different kind of way of cooking eggplants.
So this dish really reflects your travels and your exposure around the Mediterranean region.
Exactly. But the fish,
Local and wild.
that's it.
In this next evolution of the organic movement is to note that yes, while a fish might be from northern Africa, it might be organic, that the carbon footprint of shipping that to a restaurant here in the south of France is so much higher than simply using something that's in his own backyard. So how is it that you compose your menu? How do you plan?
Now we work every week with the gardener and we plant a week ahead what's going to be mature and ready to use. Like you just have to hear what this garden have to say and try and transform what he give it to you.
I've always tried to make bread that's somehow the magical bread of once upon a time. Dreaming about the way you want your bread to come out, the way it should taste. Bread is alive, and it has this beautiful and unpredictable nature. The art of baking bread is sort of like magic. All of a sudden, this thing comes to life. How do you know it's these little microorganisms, and does it really matter? My name is Yannick Tanguy. We're in Crown Point, New York, on top of Buck Mountain.
1, 2.
275 miles north of New York City, Yannick Tanguy dreams of life as an 18th century baker. Maintaining old culinary traditions and sourcing from local farmers, Tanguy sees baking as a life experiment and bread as a philosophy, simple and utterly authentic.
I have a little bakery on Main Street, right in the middle of town. When I was little, I loved bread. I always missed the bread when I came back from visiting my grandmother in France. I started trying to bake bread when I was little, and one thing led to another, and I found myself as a baker. So, really the way it works is there's yeast in the air. It's on all fruits, it's on everything. In a pound of flour, there will naturally be about 15,000 or so beneficial yeasts and bacteria. Even if you just start with good flour, and it has to be spring water. If it has any chlorine at all, it'll take much longer. In a day, if you just mix flour and water together, the next day it'll bubble up and you'll be on your way. The process that we're using, it's very close to the way bread was baked 100 years ago or 200 years ago, once upon a time. And one of the things I really have enjoyed exploring is the way flour works and backtracking from the bread to the flour through the milling process and how the farmer grows the wheat. The old-fashioned way of harvesting the wheat and planting the wheat is much different, obviously, than the modern way.
Now this field here we're coming into is soft white winter wheat and hard red winter wheat on the upper side.
I've been buying wheat from Ken Van Hazinga for years now.
Soft white is actually redder appearing at this point stage of its growth, where this still has a lot of green and is light yet, because this will be probably 2 weeks later maturing.
He has a wizardly aspect to him, and he has an intuitive understanding of what's going on in the ground.
These are the wheat berries that are still green. Squish them, you can see that they're still a little bit damp. Basically it's dough because it's the starch mixed in with water. When it's ready to be harvested, you can use the old standby and just put some in your mouth and chew it. And when they crunch, you know they're ready.
have a stone mill. We can sift off different grades of flour. Then when we're baking, we mix all kinds of different flours together. Millers always feel their flour. That's how they tell how fine the grind is. The danger of becoming successful and making a lot of product, you know, you get away from happy people putting really good energy into the food. Your food is almost emotionally sterile, going through this process where it's never touched by human hands. Big agribusiness, big tractors, machines need a certain conformity to work well in that process. It's like the old saying, simplicity is beauty. I wish the bakery could be not mechanized, just run by really simple machines. This wheat tastes pretty good. It's kind of sweet.
That's a good bite to it.
Maybe this is just a romantic notion, but it's what I think.
On any farm, cows have always been at the top of the triangle. The animals that require the most attention, the animal whose meat is the most prized, the animal whose loss is most felt when one leaves the farm. My name's Lori DeMori. I'm a journalist and food writer. We are on the Tistarelli family farm called Aia della Colonna, where Marimana cows are raised the way they always have been.
Tuscan cuisine is based largely on fresh local ingredients. Raised semi-wild, Marimane cows are native to southwest Tuscany, an area known as the Italian Wild West. This rare breed roams free over the rugged landscape, herded by cowboys on horseback. The full-flavored meat of the Marimane inspires a local specialty, bollito.
Non si sa, non viene ai veterinari?
No, sul brado fa tutta natura.
So what we're learning is that it's a time of the year when the bull is in with the cows, which is why we can't get too close. The hope is that 90% of the females will be bearing calves next spring. The bull will point him out in a minute. Dov'è il toro?
Ora, in questo momento è quello che va in giù.
Roberto is the buttero, doing a lot of his work on horse in the traditional Maremman fashion. A buttero is a cowboy. That is the Tuscan cowboy. Bellissimo sei. Tutto insieme 300?
No, 240 tutti insieme.
So the farm works 240 hectares of land, and some of it's used for grazing and some of it is used to raise crops. Marimana cows are recognizable by their beautiful curved horns and by the fact that they live semi-wild, outdoors, feeding on wild grasses, on hay, and because of that, their meat is flavorful and quite unlike anything you find in a shop.
Sempre una passione da piccolino gli animali, in genere.
Since he was a child, he's always had a passion for the animals and raising them more than anything else.
Non ancora, è anche il benessere.
Okay, well,
È già un 80% in più.
He says 80% of the goodness of these animals comes from the fact that they live well. And an animal that lives well and lives happily is going to also be a better tasting animal. Very few farmers still raise the legendary Maremman cows. The Tistarelli is one of the few families that does. It's a family affair. Mother Livia and daughter Roberta take care of the agriturismo and basically transform the products of the farm into food for guests and into meat that's sold.
Bene, lei?
Cosa sta facendo?
Bollito.
This is Roberto's mother, Livia, and she's going to show us how to make a bollito. In goes the meat.
Sì.
And it's going to be simmered slowly.
Pomodoro.
2 tomatoes, some basil. So everything's going in whole.
Sedano.
Because the vegetables aren't being put in to eat, they're putting in to give their flavor to the broth. That's it. So that'll simmer for 2 hours.
E la maionese e le patate lisse.
Traditionally, bolitas are eaten with 3 things. Salsa verde, which is green sauce, homemade mayonnaise, and potatoes. Okay. Oh, it smells meaty and delicious. Che buon odore, eh? You don't even really need a knife. It's so soft. Here we go. Tender as butter. Flavorful but not overly assertive. Delicious. I'm wondering what it's like to live so closely with these animals and also sit down to the table and eat them. So what there is not so much a tie as a respect, and Roberta, since the respect comes from the fact that those animals keep them alive, so you better have respect for them.
I grew up feeling that food mattered. You know, there's a certain reverence, and it's important how you treat food.
For me, it doesn't make sense to have garlic from Argentina because it's organic. If you want to respect the nature and if you want to be on an ecologic way, it's important to use what you have around you.
Anything that the land provides, we will see as an opportunity. To me, it must be everybody's dream to be able to grow your own food.
Delicious. Buono, complimenti.